So
Sure.
thank you very much for accepting this interview with us. Uh, we will get to the technical details of your reports concerning Pegasus project. But I want to know how do you feel about the European Parliament still giving credibility to the forbidden stories history and the study? What do you
Sure.
feel about this,
Um,
and what is your take?
yeah, I think it's unjust. I think it's an unjust thing that's happening with the European Parliament still giving credit and acknowledgement to forbidden stories, Amnesty and Citizen Lab regarding the case of Morocco, this espionage in Morocco. I think it's unjust because they've not seen all of the evidence. They're looking at everything in a very biased perspective. And this is something that's a really important issue to address because the European Parliament is being given information that is not the complete truth about the alleged espionage with Morocco, um, specifically false positive data that needs to be presented to European Parliament members of European Parliament, and this is a really big thing to consider. So it's a little long-winded, but I feel like
So
it's
now
very
you
unjust what's
so
happening.
now so basically here we are saying that the European Parliament is misinformed
Absolutely,
because we will
100%
return about the
misinformed.
false positive in your study because you started with that. Uh, why do you think there is no mention of the false positives in the Forbidden Stories study?
Because I believe the false positives would raise legitimate concerns to the validity of the espionage. That's absolutely why these false positives wouldn't be mentioned. And I think that it would change the course of the case if the general public and the governing bodies were to know that there are false positives in this case. I think it would absolutely change the trajectory of the cases.
Okay, so regarding the methodology, you said that there is what we call in the Amaradi case. Uh, there is no proof. All we have is an internet protocol. So, what do you think about the validity of this study? Well, the validity
So
of this
let's
case?
let's sure. So the validity of the Omar Radi case is it's clear that um, there there are missing pieces that even Amnesty and Citizen Lab cannot present. And this is evident when even a member of the Moroccan government had specifically asked Amnesty to present evidence um, of espionage to so that the Moroccan government could refute this. Amnesty refused to provide the evidence when confronted with by a member of the Moroccan government, and I wrote about this in my latest report. But as far as the case of Omar Radi, it's very interesting because the entire methodology in which Amnesty and Citizen Lab present on how to um, catch Pegasus, it's mainly based off of Moroccan um, Moroccan cases, and it's targeted towards Morocco specifically.
Yeah,
I can say this with confidence. Over 53% of their methodology that they presented focuses around Morocco. That's not science. That's bias, right?
yeah.
It's over half of their methodology specifically speaks about Morocco. And um, this is something that wasn't caught before. I did my investigation, or excuse me, not my looking into it, right? Not specifically investigation towards this bit, but looking into the entire methodology, right? This is what came
Yes.
about. So in the case of Omar Radi, it is absolutely. First off, we have false positive results that and when we have these false positive results, the false positive results are presented as a definitive, they're presented in a definitive report, right? So you have false positives with true positives, allegedly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the issue here is that when we're looking at these false positives, and these false positives are in what's called a trace. So basically, it's a step-by-step process in which us scientists are supposed to be able to follow. So let's just say we go through in order to find Pegasus, right? So it's, in the case of Omar Radi, we have step 1, 2, 3, false positive, which means step 4 has been removed. And so then now we have to jump to step 5. And then the next bit is step 6. And then step 7 is taken out as well because it's a false positive. So we have missing links in a chain. So how can we confirm that this espionage has happened if we have so many missing links in a chain? Okay. Not to forget to mention, the data that's presented with in the Omar Radi case is 2 separate sets of data for the exact same event that's happened. This is something that was not caught until I uncovered this recently in my latest report. And this is important because what the timestamps that this espionage is said to have happened, they don't match up. We have different timestamps for the events of espionage for this same event. Some of them are 2 hours apart, some of them are 1 hour apart. And this is very important. The details matter because you're trying to say that a murder happened at 2 different times, and that's not possible. This is, that's exactly what they're presenting. Yeah, and they presented this, and this is 100% what they're presenting to the European Parliament. This is the exact document that is presented to the European Parliament that is saying Morocco has committed espionage, the act of espionage, digital espionage, and then Morocco is then, has a resolution signed against them, specifically in the case of Omar Radi, right? When they have a murder that happened at 2 different times, and nobody checks that. So it brings into question who is actually looking at the information that's being presented. Because if the technical analysts at the EU Parliament were to look at this, they would have found this, and they would have said this doesn't make sense. How can we say that Morocco is, guilty?
So here, when you we just said that the European Parliament, is misinformed. Maybe it's something voluntarily, since you said that there is allegedly scientific analysts that works for the European Parliament. They didn't check that, so maybe this bias that we can find in the forbidden story study, we can also find it in a political manner, in a political form in the European Parliament.
Sure, and I would hope that the European Parliament had technical scientists looking at this.
Yeah,
right?
But they
because
don't.
but they don't, right? But because politicians are not equipped to review this kind of information, right?
Yeah.
And so how is it that these politicians are making this informed decision? Go ahead.
So why do you think there is a bias against Morocco in the forbidden story study, and the conflict of interest, and the financing, etc.? What do you think about that?
I think that's
because we know we have the Open Society of George Soros. The Open Society of George Soros,
yeah,
which is a big founder of Forbidden Stories and of Amnesty International as well. So what's the deal here? Why is Morocco targeted with those studies?
Sure, I can speculate, right? Of course, because this is where it gets political. I can speculate, but I know that Morocco and Israel have a strong relationship. You know, there's a strong relationship between the two countries, and I know that one of the funding parties for Amnesty and the Citizen Lab is the Ford Foundation, and the Ford Foundation is known to be very anti-Semitic, and the Ford
Okay.
Foundation was actually they were fined. They were fined by the U.S. Congress for funding anti-Semitic groups, and I wrote about this in my report as well, and it is an important part. It is a very
Okay,
important
okay.
part of
But
the
we have
espionage. Yeah,
Sojourner, which who is a Jew. He's a Jew, I think. And fourth and okay, so there is this true factor. Also, I'm listening about the Ford Foundation.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry for
and
the interruption.
so no, that's okay. That's okay. This is where it gets very speculative. And again, the reason why I mentioned the Ford Foundation specifically is because they were acknowledged by the United States by a United States congressman um, to be funding anti-Semitic groups. That's why I mention it. This is where the part where why is this all happening? Someone with a deeper political understanding and a deeper political stance would probably be best to
Yeah,
speak to this matter. But yeah, there is a lot of things that can transpire. A lot of this is political. Absolutely. If we look at if we look at the events that are surrounding all of these these purported espionage, the it always aligns with a political agenda of some sort. This is what
mhm.
is very frustrating as a scientist.
Yeah. There is always a political agenda, and this is why
Yeah.
I come to my not my last question, but maybe one of the last questions. It's about how why do you have this interest about Pegasus and the bias against Morocco?
I think it's unfair what's happening to Morocco. I think that Morocco is labeled unjustly within many communities,
Mm,
and the label of that Morocco is labeled as an authoritarian and oppressive regime,
mhm,
and this comes from NGOs and special interest groups that place this label on Morocco, and this is an unfair assessment of the type of government and how things are run. Um, as far as in my opinion, visiting and understanding a little bit of the culture and knowing the people. With that said, my interest is the truth in science, right? Because the political agenda is pushed so hard, showing the proof through science is my biggest interest. And
okay.
if we're not presenting the full truth, then we're doing a disservice to the Kingdom of Morocco and other countries around the world. And this is what I'm fighting for. I want transparency. I want everyone to have the equal opportunity to defend themselves against a crime against humanity.
Okay. And my last question is maybe I'm a little bit it's not mean, but I think why there is a lot of people who say that you are a Moroccan, you are a lobbyist for Morocco. Is that true?
Sure. I'm not paid. No, I'm
Okay.
not paid. So,
Because
yeah,
that's the basic
no one's
of being a lobbyist.
right. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
that is, no, I'm not paid by the Kingdom of Morocco. No.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So
in that sense, no, I'm not.
okay. So thank you very much for this interview. It was a pleasure.